My boyfriend's close female friend hates me, and it's destroying our relationship. My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years. Our relationship has always felt stable and solid. We live together, share similar values, and have a clear vision for the future. For the most part, I've never doubted us. But there's one person who's been a source of tension almost since the beginning, his friend Nell. When we first started dating, I knew about Nell. She's one of his closest friends, and he spoke about her often. Nell's so smart, he'd say, or Nell always gives the best advice. They've known each other for over a decade, and I could tell their friendship was important to him. I decided not to let it bother me. I have male friends too, and I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend who made a problem out of nothing. A friendship between a man and a woman can absolutely be platonic. I believed that then, and I still do. Our first meeting was supposed to be simple. My boyfriend was introducing me to his friends at a bar, and Nell was part of the group. I felt a little nervous, not about Nell specifically, but just about making a good impression in general. I had no idea what was coming. When Nell walked into the bar, the first thing I noticed was her confidence. She was tall, blonde, and exuded this effortless energy that made her the center of attention. She stopped in her tracks when she saw my boyfriend and lit up. "Oh my God, you're here," she said excitedly. She headed straight for us, but the moment her eyes landed on me, her demeanor shifted. Her smile disappeared, and her expression became cold and distant. "Hi," she said, extending her hand. I barely had time to respond before she gripped my hand so tightly that I could feel her nails dig into my skin. It lasted only a moment, but it left a lasting impression. For the rest of the evening, Nell ignored me completely. She sat across from us, talking exclusively to my boyfriend. I tried to join the conversation a few times, but she barely acknowledged me. At one point, I sat down next to my boyfriend, and I could feel her eyes on me. Her face was almost offended, like I'd taken a seat that belonged to her. The strangest moment came at the end of the evening. Nell stood up suddenly, said a quick goodbye to my boyfriend, and left without even glancing in my direction. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that Nell didn't like me. Maybe it was jealousy. Maybe she felt threatened by my presence. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just shy around new people, or maybe she'd had a bad day. Not everyone has to like me, right? But the way her smile had vanished when she saw me, the way she dug her nails into my hand, those small moments stuck with me. After that first meeting with Nell, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just a bad first impression. People have off days, and I convinced myself that with time, things would get better. But as we crossed paths more often, at parties, dinners, and group hangouts, it became clear that Nell wasn't just indifferent to me. She actively didn't like me. Nell was an expert at subtle jabs. She'd say things that seemed innocent on the surface, but were clearly designed to cut. For example, if someone complimented me, she'd immediately follow up with something like, "Oh yeah, that dress is super popular. I've seen a lot of people wearing it." On its own, it didn't sound bad, but I could feel the way she was undermining me. She also liked to poke fun at me in front of others, always with a bright smile so it didn't seem outright mean. Once, I was telling a story, and she interrupted with, "Your voice is so cute. You'd be perfect for reading bedtime stories to kids." Everyone laughed, and I joined in awkwardly, but it stung. What hurt the most wasn't just the comments. It was the way Nell completely shut me out. When we were at group gatherings, she'd go out of her way to greet everyone but me. She'd give my boyfriend a big hug and say, "I've missed you," but she wouldn't even glance in my direction. I brought this up with my boyfriend a few times, but he always dismissed it. "That's just how she is," he'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." It frustrated me that he didn't see, or didn't want to see, how uncomfortable she made me. Eventually, I decided I didn't need to subject myself to her behavior anymore. I started skipping events where I knew she'd be. If my boyfriend wanted to see her, I told him to go without me. He didn't seem to think it was a big deal. He'd go to their group hangouts, while I stayed home, convincing myself that it didn't matter. But deep down, I hated it. The more he saw her without me, the more I worried about their relationship. Was he spending so much time with her because she was more fun? Did she make him feel something I couldn't? At first, I tried to stay rational. I told myself I was overthinking things. Nell and my boyfriend had been friends for years, long before I came into the picture. It wasn't fair to expect him to cut her off just because we didn't get along. But the more I thought about their dynamic, the more unsettled I felt. I started to wonder if there was more to their friendship than he was letting on. Had they ever dated? Was there a romantic history between them that he wasn't telling me about? I brought it up a few times, trying to sound casual. You and Nell seem really close, I said once. Were you ever more than friends? He always denied it, but his responses felt defensive. No, of course not, he'd say, rolling his eyes. Why would you even think that? His reaction made me feel like I was the one being unreasonable, like I was inventing problems that didn't exist. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he wasn't telling me. One night, he went out with their group of friends, and Nell was there. When he came home, I asked how it went. He shrugged and said it was fine, offering no details. The next day, I saw photos from the night on social media. In one picture, Nell was standing next to him with her arm around his shoulders, grinning like she'd won a prize. I felt a pang of jealousy. To him, it probably looked innocent, but to me, it felt too familiar. A few days ago, I saw something that pushed me over the edge. My boyfriend left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the other room. When the screen lit up with a new message, I couldn't help but notice it was from Nell. The message itself wasn't shocking, just a single heart emoji. But when I scrolled up, I saw his reply. I was thinking about you today. My stomach dropped. I know I shouldn't have looked, but I couldn't help myself. His words kept echoing in my head. I was thinking about you today. What did that mean? Was it innocent? Or was it confirmation of what I'd been fearing all along? I didn't confront him then and there. Instead, I went to bed, pretending nothing had happened. But I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was that message and what it might mean for our relationship. I'm at the point where I don't know what to believe. I want to trust him, but I feel like I've been ignoring my instincts for too long. His friendship with Nell feels like a wedge between us, and I don't know how to handle it anymore. I've reached a point where I feel like something has to change. I can't keep living with this weight on my chest, constantly questioning my instincts and second-guessing my feelings. Every time I see my boyfriend pick up his phone, I feel a knot tighten in my stomach. Is he texting Nell again? What are they talking about? Is she sending more heart emojis? And is he still thinking about her? It's not just about jealousy, it's about respect. Nell has disrespected me openly from the moment we met. She's mocked me, excluded me, and made it clear she doesn't think I belong in his life. And through it all, my boyfriend has done nothing. I've started questioning not just her behavior, but his as well. Why hasn't he stood up for me? Why hasn't he set boundaries? I can't even talk about this with him without feeling like I'm the problem. Every time I've tried, he brushes it off. You're overthinking it, he says. Nell's just a friend. But how can he not see what I see? I've been rehearsing this conversation in my head for days. I know I need to be clear and honest, but every time I imagine how it'll go, I feel a lump in my throat. Here's what I want to say. I need you to understand how much this is hurting me. Nell's behavior has made me feel unwelcome and disrespected from the start, and I can't keep pretending it's okay. What bothers me even more is that you haven't done anything to address it. And then I want to ask the hard question. Do you value your friendship with Nell more than you value my feelings? It's a terrifying thing to ask, but I feel like I need to know where he stands. The hardest part of all this is how much it's affected my sense of self. When we first started dating, I felt confident and secure in who I was. But now, I feel small. I feel like my feelings are constantly being dismissed, and I'm starting to question whether I deserve to be heard. I've been avoiding confrontations because I'm afraid of the answers I might get. What if he doesn't take my concerns seriously? What if he chooses her over me? But the alternative, staying silent, isn't an option anymore. I know this conversation will be a turning point. Either he'll hear me out and show me that he values our relationship, or I'll have to face the reality that maybe this isn't the right relationship for me. It hurts to think about that possibility, but I also know I can't keep living like this. I deserve to feel respected. I deserve to be with someone who prioritizes me. I just hope he'll show me that he's that person. Update. A few days ago, after weeks of sleepless nights and constant overthinking, I realized I couldn't keep living like this. My relationship felt like a losing battle, and for the first time, I admitted to myself that no amount of talking or hoping was going to change the dynamic between my boyfriend, Nell, and me. It took a lot of soul-searching to come to that conclusion. For 3 years, I had invested so much of myself into this relationship, believing that we could work through anything. But it became clear that I wasn't just competing with Nell. I was competing with my boyfriend's inability, or unwillingness, to stand up for me. So, I I made the decision to leave. That night, I sat him down for what I knew would be our last conversation. I explained everything. How I'd felt like the third wheel in my own relationship, how his lack of boundaries with Nell hurt me, and how his silence whenever she mocked me made me feel disrespected and unsupported. I told him that my trust in him had eroded to the point where I didn't even know where I stood anymore. I still care about you, I said, but I need to care about myself too. He sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he looked at me and said, "So, you're jealous of Nell?" It was like everything I just poured my heart out about had gone completely over his head. When I tried to clarify my feelings, he got defensive, repeating the same line I'd heard 100 times before. I'm allowed to have female friends. I could see he wanted to turn the conversation into an argument, but I'd already made up my mind, and I wasn't going to let this devolve into another round of him invalidating my feelings. So I ended the conversation. I packed my things while he sat at his computer, playing a video game like nothing had happened. It hurt, but at the same time, it confirmed I was making the right choice. That night, I showed up at my best friend's doorstep with a suitcase in hand. The moment she opened the door, I broke down in tears. She pulled me into a tight hug and didn't let go until I'd cried it all out. We spent the evening on her couch, eating pizza, drinking wine, and watching cheesy movies. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of relief, like I'd finally let go of a weight that had been dragging me down. Since then, I've been staying with her, and we've started planning to move in together permanently. She's been my rock, reminding me of my worth every single day. My family has also been incredibly supportive. They've taken me out for meals, called me constantly to check in, and made sure I never feel alone. Even a few of my ex's friends reached out to say they understood my decision and were sorry for how things turned out. I thought that leaving would be the end of it. I was ready to move on and start fresh. But the next morning, I woke up to a series of messages from an unknown number. It was Nell. Seeing her name pop up was a shock. I hadn't expected her to contact me directly, let alone send walls of text. Her messages were a mix of excuses, denials, and passive-aggressive jabs. She insisted that she had never bullied me, claiming she didn't know where that idea had come from. She said I'd always seemed cold toward her, so she tried to lighten the mood with jokes. Mocking someone in front of others is an interesting way to lighten the mood. But sure, Nell. She also denied any romantic interest in my ex, calling my suspicions ridiculous and delusional. She ended her rant with what I can only describe as a sarcastic apology, accusing me of ruining my own relationship by being jealous and listening to voices in my head. It was venomous and exhausting to read, but I refused to engage. I knew she wanted to provoke me, to drag me back into her game of insults and reactions. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Leaving wasn't easy. Even though I knew it was the right decision, the first few days were filled with a mix of relief and grief. I had spent 3 years building a life with my boyfriend, and walking away from that felt like closing the door on a part of myself. But as the days went by, I started to feel lighter. Staying at my best friend's place was like hitting the reset button on my life. She made sure I felt supported every step of the way. We've been having the kind of nights I hadn't realized I missed, laughing over wine and takeout, reminiscing about old memories, and dreaming about the future. She even helped me start looking at apartments for us to share. It feels like a fresh start in every sense of the word. My family has also been incredible. They've been rallying around me, taking me out for meals, and constantly checking in. My mom told me she was proud of me for leaving a relationship that wasn't serving me anymore. Hearing that from her meant everything. One unexpected surprise was hearing from a couple of my ex's friends. They messaged me to say they were sorry about how things turned out and that they completely understood my point of view. One even admitted that Nell's behavior had always been a little off. It was validating to know I wasn't imagining things. And then there's Nell's message. At first, it made me angry. How dare she accuse me of being jealous or making things up? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized her words didn't matter. She could twist the narrative however she wanted. I wasn't going to let her drag me back into her drama. Now, instead of worrying about what Nell or my ex might think, I'm focusing on myself. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm prioritizing my happiness and self-worth. If you'd asked me a month ago if I could see myself happy without my ex, I'm not sure what I would have said. At the time, I was so caught up in trying to fix things that I couldn't see how much the relationship was breaking me. But now, I finally feel like I can breathe. The promotion I got at work was an incredible surprise, and it felt like a sign from the universe that I'm on the right path. My boss told me I'd earned it through hard work and resilience, two things I'd forgotten I had in me. It was a reminder that I'm capable and deserving of success, both in my career and in my personal life. Living with my best friend is something I'm genuinely looking forward to. We're already making plans for decorating, hosting dinner parties, and creating a space that feels like home. It's exciting to think about a future where I'm surrounded by people who lift me up instead of dragging me down. I've also started journaling to process my feelings and rediscover who I am outside of the relationship. It's been therapeutic to put my thoughts on paper and reflect on what I've learned. Here's what I know now. My feelings are valid. I deserve to be with someone who respects me and makes me feel secure. It's okay to walk away from people, even people you love, if they're not treating you the way you deserve. Looking back, I realize how much of myself I lost trying to make that relationship work. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I doubted myself when I should have trusted my instincts. But I'm done with that now. I'm finally putting myself first, and it feels amazing. For the first time in years, I'm excited about the future. So to everyone who offered advice and support on my original post, thank you. Your words helped me see the truth and gave me the courage to take that leap. Here's to new beginnings.